We were talking before, and Jose, you've seen this a couple of times, but Ben, this was probably your first time seeing it since it aired, right? Yeah. So how was it revisiting this thing for both of you guys?
I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, take it out.
I enjoyed it quite a bit, actually. But I had this interesting. I'll put these here. For me, the language took a moment to get used to again because it's such a it's got its own parlance, and I got into it again. There was a moment where it just took a moment because they're talking weird. It's just an interesting.
And you wrote that weird.
No kidding, right? Yeah, but I really enjoyed it. I actually like the pacing, and I think it was good.
Did that language strike you guys as weird at the time?
You know, it was actually really easy to get into. Once you got into it. It was almost harder to walk around the office and not talk like that.
Really?
You know, we sounded like idiots, but we started saying ain'ts and y'alls and sure.
And most like. You're gonna have that by Tuesday? Most like.
I know it was some time ago, but take us into this episode from beginning to end. Where did it come from? How did you guys wind up writing it? How did you wind up writing it together?
You remembered some things about the imperative that started it.
Yeah, I mean, we, as I'm sure you guys all know, we were never the network's favorite show. They didn't quite get what we were and what we should be. So they kept sort of pushing us to go sci-fi so that they could quote-unquote get it. And so Joss's immediate response to that was to throw Heart of Gold at them, which is the most westerny one we did.
Right.
But this one we got 2 extra strips ordered after the initial order, and they wanted one that was very science fiction-y. And so they were like, can it be a little more like Ariel and maybe Armistice Reynolds? So for the longest time, while we were working on this, we called this Armistice Ariel.
What was it about those episodes that they responded to?
Well, Ariel was really well written.
It was the best written episode of television ever, Mr. Molina.
They could get it. They could wrap their heads around it. One was a broad comedy, and the other one was, which they always wanted. They always hated how dark Firefly could get. So they wanted a funny, fun sci-fi caper that they could, that they could try to pigeonhole the show in that direction.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then, so did you guys come up with the story idea? Was it broken in the room? How did that happen?
I think Saffron's return was kind of predestined because it had worked so well initially, right?
Yeah.
And then that wasn't the one that we had like 6 other things for. Was it Heart Gold where we were talking about a mine with a genetic monster and all that stuff?
That was crazy time.
Yeah, we had like 1,000 for Heart Gold, but this one, I forget.
Because of the problem with Heart of Gold was that Brett Matthews, who wrote Heart of Gold, had been initially scheduled to write the Christmas episode, which he had pitched to Joss during the filming of the pilot. And he had this crazy, incredible, a very Reaver Christmas. And, it was awesome. It was so good. But at that point, the network had decided that they were going to air the pilot last. And if we did a Reaver episode before that, we would completely blow the surprise of the end of Serenity. But this one came about just as a desire to bring back Saffron,
right.
And then
a heist.
So
the elements kind of, it did feel that way, which I think it really came together nicely. I mean, but it did have these kind of, a lot of stories in TV end up, you get these chunks that land, and they tell you what the story will be because of the things that are required outside of,
but then you guys kind of have to break the specifics, though. I mean, you have a whole universe at your disposal. How do you decide who is going to be robbed from? Were there wrong roads that you went down, or what is going to be stolen, or things like that?
Well, the MacGuffin, in this case, was an interesting thing that because it lived in this place of like, well, we want this to be a very valuable thing, and it was kind of TBD for a long time to be determined thing that I mean, initially we were thinking a piece of culture. Well, the first run was a piece of culture from Earth that was, and there was a time when it was going to be. I remember it being like a vinyl record from the Knack.
I think
we all had different
Knack,
pitches.
and then we quickly went to like the Beatles.
The Beatles, or there was so there were a bunch of different possibilities as what that little shred was, and then which I liked this one. That's the one that we talked. Like when you came up with it, we thought that was going to be it.
Yeah, we had landed on the Lassiter, but nobody really loved it. It was like, well, it's a ray gun. It should be an artifact. It should be an artifact
from our time. Really,
yeah. But we went forward with the Lassiter, and I just remember being in Vegas for the weekend and running across a globe in some store and going, well, wait a minute, how about a globe of Earth that was? It's not of this time, but it's of Earth as far back as the history of our show takes us. And I think I might have emailed you, and I left a message for Tim, and I got there on Monday, and I'm like, did you guys get my message? Are we going to do the globe? And I was like, oh, dude, it's too late. Pop's already built the last one.
It's all good, though. Yeah.
And then tell me a little bit about, taking the story apart and putting it back together, I guess. You had these pieces, and was it a typical episode in the writing of it? And what was a typical episode? How were things written, and then what was the process they were put through before production?
First year, I mean, this was a first-year show, so there was not yet an established typical, kind of. And I think there was a lot of, scripts were kind of helped. Everyone was helping each other, I thought.
Towards the end, everybody used their hands were in every script.
Yeah, which it worked quite well, I thought. I mean, it wasn't intrusive or problematic. We'd all gotten into a good wavelength together and stuff. But in the case of this one, I'd say that, this is true of every kind of heist episode that you start to open out into. You go, all right, well, we need a heist. It's like starting a con episode. Oh, we need a con. Oh, God help us, we need a con. So in this case, this heist, the notion of the trash, the notion of Bellephron and those floating estates, that was a fun period of ideation.
Yeah, I remember a couple of locations on the show were determined because Lonnie, our visual effects coordinator, kept playing with his software and creating new worlds. And so Lonnie would call Joss or bring him in to bring a laptop to show him something. And all of a sudden, Joss would go like, okay, floaty island in the middle of the ocean. I love it. It looks great. Go.
Cool. Yeah.
And were the writers on set for production?
So this one we were in.
Yeah. You were. So tell us about that. How was the production on this? It seemed sort of ambitious. I mean, there was a lot going on here.
Yeah, it was fun.
Anything stand out? Any memories?
Well, I was telling you the story yesterday about how in that last scene there, where Nathan is butt naked, he pulled a prank on the crew that were standing there, and when he took off his robe and turned to face the crew, he had a headshot of Joss covering his man part. And I was able to be complicit in that. He walked up to me and was like, hey, can you get me a headshot? Why? I wanted to do this.
I have to tape it to my junk.
You're going to put Joss on your penis. Yeah, funny.
Well, yeah, Nathan and Joss notoriously hate each other.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's terrible relationship.
Everyone knows that.
Yeah, it's a total breakdown.
It's always an unhappy place at Joss Whedon production.
Yeah, nobody ever goes back to work.
Right. I'm curious, are there changes on set? I mean, it's knowing you guys and knowing the kind of scripts that you turn out, they're really polished things, kind of beyond what you usually get at the end of a writing cycle. But were there changes on set on this? Were there things that the actors brought to this particular episode, or really in general, I'm wondering?
There's that ad-lib that you recall that I think...
Yeah, let's not share that. Should I share that?
I think
that's stupid.
What? I think it was...
Guys, don't listen.
No,
I want to hear.
All right, well, the scene where Mal comes into the...
It's a great Ron Glass moment.
Yeah, the moment where Mal walks back onto the cargo deck after having encountered Saffron and all that nonsense in the desert, it starts out with the crew all in the cargo deck waiting for him, and they're bored, and they don't want to be hauling boxes, and they're whatever, they're sick of this. And so they're just kind of whining a little bit. And Jane is just trying to get on Simon's case. He's just being a pain in the ass and mocking him. And Simon doesn't want to deal with it, and so he just goes, he looks at Book and goes, I'm bored. And Book turns back to him and goes, I've been thinking of buying a hat.
That is the scene, and like, it was beautiful. I mean, like, and ultimately, you know, it was, things get cut and everything. I mean, we were there to see it, and it was, but what I like about it too is that it is actually a really good expression of part of Firefly. Like, one of the things that, I mean, Dark Star did this a long time ago, like the idea of just being in space, on a spaceship, with these people. Oh my God, we're going to another planet. I mean, just a moment of hanging out before the action resumes, to me. I mean, there were a lot of those kind of feels, like Wash playing with the dinosaurs in the very beginning of the show. When you first meet him, you go, that was actually fairly radical, short of certain early stages of things like Johnny Carpenter, really old sci-fi, or just moments in Alien or something, that they were really like, yeah,
but it's rare that you get it, especially on a TV series where you have to introduce the world and you have to introduce so much stuff to have these small character moments.
There's that great scene at the top of War Stories where it's Simon's birthday, and everybody's sitting around the table, and Wash has just finished setting the autopilot, and he's missed the end of a story, and he's like, "What? What did I miss?
Yeah.
Come on, tell me what was the funny thing." And everybody's just like, "Yeah."
And they're enjoying fruit, right? That's also, don't they get like strawberries or something for the birthday, or was that a different one?
I think that's after Ariel when they sold all the medicine. But yeah, there's another. That's War Stories,
right?
And they're all just sharing stories about how they lobbed over apples, and it wasn't apples, they were grenades, and they got blown up.
That was more, and they were enjoying. Right? Okay, yeah.
What we've talked a little bit even this weekend on panels about, you know, the kinds of genre stuff that you guys are into. But what was it about this show and joining this show that really got you going? What pushed the buttons for you?
For me, it was Jaws.
Yeah,
that was it.
How did you even get on this show?
Well,
who let you in here?
It's kind of funny because I was an assistant. I was Howard Burton's assistant when Howard was on Buffy, and then when he was on Angel. So technically I had worked on Buffy and Angel, just, you know, answering phones. But I'd seen every script, I'd seen the process, I was a huge fan of the world, and Tim knew that I wanted to break into writing. And so I got my first job and I left, and then that show got canceled, and Tim basically called and was like, "Do you want to come work on Firefly?" And I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Yes. But I never had an interview because they knew me, and Tim had read me, so I was literally a day away from taking another job, and I emailed Tim and I was like, "Hey, you know, thanks for reading my stuff and thanks for considering me. Sorry it's not going to work out, but you know, I'm going to go on the show." And I literally wake up to a phone call the next day saying, "Hey, did you take that job? If you didn't, don't take it."
Wow, that's crazy. How did you get involved with the show? Was it a usual interview process? Although you were on Angel.
No, I went to Angel after. Actually, I was out of TV for a while. I had done a live-action version of The Tick, which the making of was sort of... but the making of it was sort of very difficult, because it was just very ambitious, and it was a crazy show. So I was kind of out of it, and then realized I had a child and no money. I thought, well, I should get a job again, I guess. And so, but I was really, really lucky that show had come up, and I had had enough borderline notoriety to get an interview and stuff. And then, but I actually, I made the terrible mistake of I didn't recognize Joss during the interview. I actually shook Tim Mynier's hand. "Oh, you Joss? Hey, it's good to meet you." He just seemed to be like closer or something like that. Like,
he was commanding the room.
He's a little taller, I guess.
Awful misstep in this situation, but I think soon after that I demonstrated a complete authentic inability to grasp social cues. So like they was completely, oh no, someone let like a semi-autistic man into the office and we'll just listen and then he'll go away. But yeah, and then like I was telling you before, my first pitch was like, okay, they're flying through space and their scanners go off. There's something and they pull over and they find this guy frozen on a 10-speed bike. And wow, the silence.
And then what happens?
Yeah,
We don't know.
We'll find out. Like, so,
You want to see that opening? You're like,
God,
I
yeah.
want to know what happened to the guy.
and then and the title is Hafi.
What was pitching like in that
Discovered
room?
primitive alien culture and they worship the god Hafi.
But the Schwinns were awful with this.
You're in the middle of an intergalactic war. What was like pitching in that room? That was like a heavy hitter room.
Well, it was small, right? I mean, it was it was Joss would come by once in a while, Mynir, and then us, you, me, Cheryl, and Brett.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
So that's like, I mean, yourselves included, that's a lot of big idea people.
I thought it was fun because, I mean, that's also, there was a lot of work done on it, but it was one of those ripe new world situations, and it was, the system by which you generated worlds was really nice because there's this terraforming notion and stuff. I don't know, there was something really nice about the world of it. So pitching was, I think, really, I had fun.
Yeah, I mean, you came in with Jamestown just like overnight and you pitched it and it was pretty.
I dreamt Jamestown. So it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I woke up in the morning and I was like,
You son of a...
that would probably work.
Yeah.
What a great, stupid brain. I just put it to sleep.
But it was, I mean, I remember it was fully formed. Like you had the backstory, the beginning, the middle, and the end, and you just sort of put it out to Johnson and he was like, wow.
That was a rare situation because he just went, okay. Like, and then that one was, I mean, that was unusual. I mean, it was because Joss is, usually you would pitch an element that caught his intrigue, and then you would it would be a catalytic relationship to where the story ended up, and then you would bounce. That's my recollection of a lot of them. Which was
or you know, he would come in with an idea and we sort of kick it around for a couple of days, and you actually had the great description of the Price is Right game.
Oh yeah, what is that? Right. Oh, I always feel this way, like because especially when you're like everyone's looking, so you're not getting direct guidance signals because everyone's in that open receptive space, even Joss, to try and get to the place where the right ideas come. So when you're shopping around trying to get these things and you don't know exactly if you're right or wrong, there's a specific game on the old Price is Right that to me is exactly it. Which is, what is it? It's like, anyway, it's exactly Price is Right. They have all the prizes on one side and all the prices on the other. And you have to put the prices in front of all the prizes and then run over and pull this thing. But you never know which one is right and which one is wrong.
Right, when you pull the lever, you get a number.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, or 4, and if you have 4, you got them all right and you win them all.
Yeah, so in the equivalent in pitching is like, or in story generation is like, you run off to kind of formulate a new sort of idea of where the story will be, and what you're actually doing is removing all the right you had, and changing it all around, and you come back with this handful of, and then Joss is just like, oh, but my time is valuable. Why did you use it up with all those words? I don't...
We love metaphors, you guys. We have some time for your questions. You must have some. Can we bring the lights up a little bit so I can see these guys? But do you have questions either about this episode or in general? Stand up right here and shout.
So, the two takeaway lines from
That's
this.
right, I think you're here.
The two takeaway lines from this episode are like, I've seen you unclothed, but now I've seen you naked, and the whole I can kill you with my brain. I mean, do you remember who gets credit for those lines?
I don't think it was me in either case.
I can kill you with my brain was definitely Joss.
Okay.
Because that whole scene he wrote, and it's like an 8-page scene with that huge monologue that Simon has in it. And this is, as we were talking about before, this is when we were all collaborating on the scripts and taking, like, you take Act 1, you take Act 2. And so Joss, in the middle of running 2 other shows, took that scene and a bunch of others in the teleplay. And he went home at like 9 o'clock one day and came back at 9 a.m. the next morning with 8 pages. That didn't change. That word of them didn't change, and that's the button to that scene.
Yeah, and that happened a lot. I mean, there was a lot of just basically it was this is true, I think, of television. There's a certain amount of collaboration in television that is resisted as a notion from the outside, meaning that, like, it's a tremendously collaborative situation. I mean, like, I'm usually surprised when names go on episodes anyway. You're like, all right, fine. It was about my time. I was like, all right, good. But I mean, like, I think that's very interesting. It makes it a very interesting medium.
But then on the other hand, I mean, we just heard where Jamestown came from.
Sure.
Which is clearly so much from you. And I'm sure there was a ton of collaboration in the room, and then obviously it's collaboration throughout. But,
totally.
You know.
And really, ultimately, I feel like in a television like, it's important for Joss to come in and hit these, like, because, for example, that scene between Inara and Mal is Joss also, and it's it's a series adjustment for their relationship. You know what I mean? Like, there's something really important, and it's, I think, a very beautifully written scene. Like, and it needs to be there, because he could not express, I think, for his satisfaction to anyone, how to write that particular exchange, because it's very specific, right? And it reads with a very Jossian thing or something. But then, like, I wrote the exchange between Saffron and Mal on the planet, and, like, all the things that set up, you know, and that felt to me like sort of a Jossian thing too. It fit. Like, I mean, so you're just trying to be remotely Jossian.
Yeah, that's why you're a staff too. Yeah. You're there full time to study what works and what doesn't, and how it's done and how he wants it. That's why you don't have very many freelances on TV, especially on a voice-specific show like a Joss show. You just can't jump in and be even close.
Mm-hmm. I was curious. I mean, you brought up that relationship shift, but I was curious about dealing with the continuing story in this. You know, they're all sort of standalone episodes, but you guys touch on the Jane story with Simon. How did you guys approach that? Was it dictated? I imagine it was. That piece had to be in there and had to fall in this place.
Well, that started, I mean, like, that whole betrayal thing started in Ariel, and, I mean, we were fairly active in trying to, that was breaking in Ariel, and that was where, I know that was an impulse for Jane, I don't know where that came from.
Well, we had, actually, you might have been shooting Jamestown, but I remember trying to get that past Joss and Tim at the beginning was really hard.
To get the betrayal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we had the heist. We knew what we wanted to do. We knew it was going to be this hospital thing. But it was just a lot of action and just a lot of moves. And it was nothing but A-Team. And so we pitched, I specifically pitched to Tim over the phone, hey, what about this? And he's like, well, that's a great idea. It fits perfectly, but what else do you have? It's too early.
Right, that was, which I think it was great, because, and I think actually, you know, in terms of the shows that are really compelling, where we've advanced in sort of drawing people in, like, if you look at, like, a good HBO show, it will have something like that in the first run, where you get, like, a real meaty kind of little betrayal somewhere in there. I mean, I think it was a good move to do it when it was.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it was sort of ahead of its time in that way.
And I mean, part of it was that Joss had an end game for the season. Like, he knew where he wanted to go. And I've actually heard different versions of this, because I remember essentially Serenity, the movie, being what he had in mind for the end of season 1. I've heard people say that that's what he had in mind for season 2, but I only remember hearing what they did to River and why, all that.
Right. I don't know. I forget. I know that we were going to get somewhere into that. We might have settled it, or maybe, I don't know if we would have gotten to the planet or not. I forget. You remember. We'll go with his memory.
Nobody knows. It was a long time ago. More questions? Yes, you are very eager right here. Wait for the microphone.
Hi. Okay. Well, you guys touched on it a little bit, on, like, the direction that y'all wanted the characters to go, and there's been a lot of rumors and thoughts and things that have been passing around, what were some of the things that y'all didn't get to write for Firefly? Especially, I've heard some things about Inara, and I've heard some things about Shepherd Book, and some of it was wrapped up in Serenity. But I'm really curious as to know what the direction was heading for a lot of the characters if it gone on to the next 9 episodes.
Wow.
Or you could make something up right now.
Yeah, I don't.
It doesn't have to be. They won't know.
Well, Inara was dying.
Yeah, well, there was that whole thing with she was dying, and there was a Tim and Joss were really going to make an episode at some point, the Reaver episode. You remember that with Inara in the shuttle? It was going to be it was this very, very hard edged. But I remember this. It was the Searchers was part of like the collective like the underlying sort of tone intent of the series. So that was the darkness that the network was like, please don't, please stop it. But like so there was going to be this moment where, I mean, later on, I'm not sure when it wasn't really scheduled exactly, but it was part of the Inara is dying storyline. Right, where it was the Reavers attack, and somehow Inara is cornered in her shuttle and she gets raped by many, many Reavers. You remember, right? But there was something that she had done preparing herself so that she was like a poison rape scenario.
Oh my God.
And she ends up taking a huge number of Reavers by being...
Because she was dying, she knew, well, my days are numbered anyway, so I may as well make myself poisonous to the touch, and I'll take them all out when they rape me.
So it was this like strange sacrificial, and like it created such a bizarre static. I mean, like to even think about. No one knew exactly, and they were. I understand. Like it was a bunch of. It was really like hardcore playing with gender and sacrifice and what the companions were about. Like it was an endpoint of a whole discussion that story represented. But it was hardcore.
Yeah.
I mean that's sort of the hardcore Western thing where if the engines are coming, you kill yourself, or you do something, you kill your child to protect them from what's coming, and that kind of extremity was really. But half the time they would say something, or you would say something, and the person on the receiving end of the idea wasn't sure if you were kidding or not. Because I remember Brett Matthews pitching. We were in a showdown with this gang, and the leader of the gang is this huge 9-month pregnant lady, and they betray us, and Mal shoots her and kills her.
Right.
And then we sort of evolved it into something that could be a little funnier, and we had a great ending for it. But I remember pitching with this to Joss, and he just looks at me and goes, "Are you kidding me?" And I was like, "No, man, we've never seen anything like this on TV." And he literally just stone-faced looks at me and goes, "I haven't seen Ernest Borgnine taking a shit on TV."
Now, was that was where they were going to end